Since buying my Surron 6 months ago, there's been one thing that has slowly been declining, and that is the brakes. So in today's video, we're going to be bleeding the brakes, upgrading the brake pads, and hopefully completely transforming the stock brakes on the Surron Lite BX. I'm also going to be doing some comparisons to the brakes now, the brakes after bleeding, and then the brakes after bleeding and having the new pads in. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So the first thing we're going to be doing in this video is testing how the brakes work as they are. I've not changed the pads, I've not bled them, I've not changed the stock discs, everything is completely stock. They have definitely gotten worse since I first started riding the Surron, so let's see how they get on in a few brake tests. So for this, I'm just going to be rolling up and hitting the brakes and seeing how good the stopping power is on them. That is the brakes completely fully on. I cannot press them any further. As you heard, there was a bit of a squeak, which is showing that the pads are slightly wearing down. Again, we're going to do the same. And fully on. The stopping power is so crap on these stock brakes. For a start, when I first started riding the Surron, they really weren't that bad, but after time they've gotten worse and worse and worse, and now they're really at the point where they definitely need something doing with them. So this will be the final test before we start doing the upgrades. And that was fully slammed on. They cannot do any more. So now I've been ahead and tested the brakes on the Surron completely stock after about 500 miles of using them. I think it's safe to say that they're actually pretty useless by now. So to start this bleeding kit process, there is a few tools you're going to need. This isn't really a how-to, this is just how I'm going to be doing it. This is my first time doing it, but I do have some experience on bleeding brakes on bikes like these. So first of all, I've gone ahead and bought some Shimano brake oil. This is just mineral oil that we're going to be using to pump around the brake system. I then went ahead and bought an easy mountain bike brake bleed kit off of Amazon. It was a really cheap one, but it comes with everything you need to bleed the brakes on the Surron. I bought a couple of rags along to clean up any mess that we do make. It would help if you had some alcohol or some water to spray down to help clean up, but hopefully I'm not going to make that much mess. And then as for tools, I've bought along a Torx bit. I'm not really sure what size this is, as it was just in my miscellaneous box of tools. I do think it's probably about a T15 if I had to guess, but I am just guessing. I have bought 2 Allen keys with me, a size 3 and a size 4mm Allen key to undo the bolts that we're going to be needing to undo on the brakes today. So for a start, what I've done here is I've attached the funnel to the brake. There is a bolt, which will be this bolt right here that you undo, which is then where the funnel screws into. I filled the funnel up with some mineral oil and then plugged it in that way, which when we do undo the bolt, which I've already undone on the back, which would be this bolt here, the oil that is left in the line can't then travel down because you've plugged it up there, so no air can then push gravity through and push it back down. I've stuck a rag here because it's a really important tip that you don't get this mineral oil, especially on your disc brake, because it will corrode it and it will contaminate it, and you don't really want to get it anywhere else on the bike. You want to keep it as clean as possible. So then next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up this syringe here that I've got. I'm going to fill this up with mineral oil, making sure that I get all the air bubbles out of this syringe before putting it on the bike, so then that way when we syringe the fluid up through the line, it will push all the air bubbles out at the top and it won't get any air bubbles back in the system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this end in here and I'm going to fill this up as much as I can with the mineral oil. So we've got a nice full syringe, and then what you're going to do is you're going to want to hold it upside down, so then like you can see there, all the air rises to the top, and then you can syringe that air out onto a rag, which is what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to hold this over the end, hold it upright as possible so it pushes that air out. You can see the air bubbles coming out of the system. And you're going to want to do that until you have got literally all the air out. So that should be the last air bubble. And now we've got a syringe that is full of only brake fluid and nothing else. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push this clip on. That should then just seal it up, so when we put it on the bike, no air could then pass through. So now we've got the syringe screwed in at the bottom, which is blocking off that hole. We've got the funnel at the top, which is plugged, which is pushing off that hole. So in a minute, I'm going to remove this plunger and I'm going to push the fluid up the syringe through the bike, and you'll see the air bubbles coming out of this funnel. So what I've done is I've pushed most of that, but not all of that fluid through up into the funnel. So now that should have pushed any air bubbles out, so we should have a bled brake system. So what we're going to do is go ahead and clip this back up. We're going to want to come back up to where our funnel is, grab our plunger again, and we're just going to seal off the funnel at the top there, meaning that now when we undo the syringe, nothing can come back down the brake line. I'm going to prepare myself with a little grub screw that goes back in, so once we've got the syringe off, we can wipe all the oil off and put that straight back in. Make sure you wipe off any of the oil that wants to just seep out of that hole. There shouldn't be a lot, it should be plugged off. I do recommend wearing gloves for this as well. Stupidly I'm not. Make sure we do that back up nice and tight. Just over finger tight should do it. There should be no need to over tighten that, but you're going to want to make sure that it is tight so it doesn't come loose while you're riding. Again, wipe up any excess. Nice clean job so that you don't get any on that disc. That is a very important step. So now with that part done, we can go ahead and remove the funnel. It's a little bit fiddly to do on the Surron because you have got to try and get behind the tank that holds the mineral oil at the top. Once you've got that out, it's a straight swap back in with that bolt, Torx bit in, and get that done up. Again, just over hand tightness should be enough. Shouldn't have to go too tight with it. And then you're going to set this all down and we should have some bled. So that was just bleeding the back brake. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process for the front brake, then both brakes are bled, then we're going to give it a test to see if it's actually made any difference whatsoever. Hopefully you saw some bubbles coming out in the funnel, but I'm going to go ahead and do the front brake as well. Then we'll do a comparison to see if it's made any difference just with the stock pads, nothing else, just the brake. Let's get on to the front brake. So I've gone ahead and finished bleeding both sets of brakes on the Surron, front and back. Now we're going to do another comparison on stopping power and hopefully we should see some difference. So I'm going to do the same again. I'm just going to have a nice long run up, get some speed, and then I'm just going to fully slam on and hopefully we've seen a bit of a difference. Okay. A slight bit of difference, nothing too serious. Let's put it in sport mode now for this next test. Okay, so we're going to go and get some speed and then fully slam on. Okay, that has definitely made a difference in the back brake. That has definitely made a difference because I just slid, which I haven't managed to do on the back brake so far for a good few rides now. We're going to do one more comparison on the stopping power, then we're going to get the pads changed. So get some speed and slam on. So that's definitely made some sort of difference to the stopping power. Not a huge difference, but definitely a bit of difference, so it was worth doing. So let's go ahead, let's get on with changing the pads, then we're going to do another comparison, hopefully before the sun sets behind us and it gets too dark. Let's get to it. Okay, so now moving on to the pads. I have gone for the Shimano H03C pads, which a lot of people go for on the Surron. I've read a lot online about them. These seem to be the best replacement for just the stock pads on the stock brakes for the Surron. So this should be a nice, easy, quick job for you. Shimano brake pads, a 3mm or 4mm Allen key, I cannot remember now. It was just out of my miscellaneous toolbox, so I'm just taking a guess. And then 2 sets of long nose pliers, just in case one set isn't quite enough. So what we're going to want to do is there's a bolt here, a little bit of a clip on the back of the brake pads, hopefully you can see that. We're going to take this clip off, undo that bolt, and then the pads should just slide out of the top. Should be a nice easy change. So the best way of getting this out that I've found is by going round the back, getting your long nose pliers in, getting them on there and giving it a good old pull, and just like that it comes off nice and easy. You're going to want to set that down somewhere where you know it is and you're not going to lose it. I'm actually going to open up the new pads now, come in a nice little paper bag, and with these are the pads. They actually look a bit easier to put in than the other pads because they've got some upstand. These are the 2 other bits that you're going to get. This is a pin, this is mainly more for push bikes. You're going to want to reuse this bolt here on the Surron. This thing's going to be useless on the Surron, so I wouldn't bother about that. And then when you take the old pads out, this will be in between, and this is just there to keep the pads apart when you're not using the brake so it doesn't rub on the disc. So now we're going to go ahead and undo this bolt. I have had my pads out once before just to check that everything was alright with them. They don't actually seem warmed down, but they definitely seem like they've lost a bit of stopping power over time, so it's definitely worth changing them. There's the bolt out. I'm going to take my pliers, I'm going to pull the first one out. There's one of the pads out, so as you can see there's a bit of wear on it. Still a lot of pad actually left, so not quite too sure why the stopping power has reduced, but might be a bit of contamination on the disc, so they might need a clean in a future video. But that's the first one out. So now the fun bit comes with putting in the new pads. You have got a right and the left, are obviously being on this back side, because as you look at the brake, that would be the right hand side, and then you've got an L for the left, meaning the left hand side when you sat on the bike. Don't actually know what the actual name is, but that's going to want to sit just either side like so. You're going to want to push these together so they sandwich. There might be a bit of fiddling when it's getting them back together, but they're definitely going to want to just sit like that with the left and right in the right places. Let's try and get them in. That should be the pads both in, and hopefully we should be able to push that bolt straight back through in the middle. So after a bit of fiddling, that's all back in place. We can start doing that back up. Then you're going to want to get your clip, put that back around the back. It's actually harder to see now where to do it, but that is back on, and then the new pads fitted. So I'm going to go ahead and do the front. I'm not going to do it on video because it's just rinse and repeat on the front. Hopefully it's just as easy because it's at a slightly different angle. That's why I started with the back, because you go from the top, whereas on the front you're going to have to go in from the side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then we're going to do another comparison just before it gets dark on whether that's actually changed the brake setup on the Surron or not. So we've now done everything that we wanted to do on the Surron today, which was bleed the brakes and then put the new brake pads in. So now we're going to do a brake comparison from the stock brakes to the bled brakes, now to the brakes with brand new pads in. Bear in mind that the new pads, so they are going to want braking in, they're going to want bedding in. They're not going to perform at best quality straight away, and normally you should ride with some sort of caution when putting new pads in until they have fully bedded in. But for this we're only going to be doing 3 tests just to see what difference that has made. So let's go ahead and give it a test. Okay, so we're going to do the same again. We're going to go full whack, then we're going to slam on the brakes and see what difference it has actually made. So we're in sport again, and brake. Wow, no way. Okay, so instantly there, that has made one hell of a difference. I felt the front brake actually stopping me for the first time in about 300 miles. The back brake actually locked up and I did a bit of a skid. Didn't really mean to, but what a difference that has made already, and they're not even bedded in yet. That is a massive difference. I've got half a feeling that the back brake is actually rubbing slightly on the disc, so I am going to have a look at that. Maybe it'll wear itself in a bit, but let's go ahead and do our next test. Oh my god. So hopefully you can see on the camera the difference that has made already, just by doing the pads and giving it a bleed. I don't feel like that I actually have to now change the whole brake. I was going to buy a whole new brake system, new calipers, new levers, even going to get onto buying some new discs for it. But already without the new pads being bedded in, I feel like I don't have to at all. Let's do one more test and that should conclude the video. Whoa. I'm genuinely shocked by that. Just by changing the pads alone, and giving it a bleed I should say, because it's not just the pads, but just by bleeding the brakes and changing the pads, it's 100% better than the stock was straight away. I thought the stock brakes weren't that bad, but now I've changed the pads, I can feel that they're actually doing something, they're actually stopping me. They definitely instantly feel better than new. See that straight away, it's just dropped the front wheel. That is incredible. I am literally shocked by that. I cannot get over how good that actually is. That stopping power is so good. I know I should probably wait till it's bedded in a bit more, but that's insane. I feel the difference mainly on the front because of how bad the front was stopping before. The back was still stopping but not quite locking up like it's meant to be. It has definitely made the brakes 100% better. I'm not even going to say 50, I'm going to say 100%. Just before I stop the video, I'm just going to talk prices on everything, just so you got an idea of what it's going to cost you to do this. So starting with the bleed kit and the mineral oil. The mineral oil was about £8 from Amazon. It's Shimano, so it's genuinely going to be some good stuff. Not really sure if it's meant for these brakes or not, but it seems to have done the trick. Seems to have done a really good job, so I'm happy with it. The bleed kit only cost me about £12, and that comes with all the different attachments, a funnel, 2 syringes and everything that you're going to need to be able to bleed the brakes on the Surron. And then let's talk about the price of the pads. So front and back, the pads cost me £22 a pair. For the Shimano H03Cs they are, and normally they're about £40 a pair. I actually got them on a bit of a discount. There was quite a few websites that had them at discount, so I'm pretty sure if I found them for discount, you could also find them for a discount. So overall you're looking at roughly about £55–60 for the whole thing that I've just done, and what a difference it has made. For 50 quid you wouldn't buy a whole set of brakes that's going to completely change your bike like this already has. So overall, that was definitely worth doing to the bike. Hopefully you saw in the videos how much difference it actually did make to the stopping power. So over the 3 comparisons, it really should have made a real difference. It definitely feels like it made a big difference on the bike alone. I really do recommend that you go ahead and you change your pads and you bleed your brakes if you own a Surron and you haven't done any brake maintenance in a few hundred miles. If you're still riding the stock pads, just get rid of them. They're rubbish. They're trash. You don't want to be riding with them. They're probably dangerous. If I was you, I'd definitely upgrade to the Shimano H03Cs. They're not going to break the bank. They're definitely worth doing. If you've never bled the brakes on a Surron before and you want a more in-depth video, let me know down below in the comments and I'll do a more in-depth video in the future on bleeding the brakes with a lot more information in for you. If you have liked this footage on bleeding the brakes and changing the pads on the Surron, go ahead and hit that like button so YouTube knows that you like watching my videos and you like watching this video. If you've got any questions or anything that you want to say about the pads and changing them and the progress it's made, then please leave a comment down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button for more to come in the future. There's going to be loads more Surron videos, and I may have just bought a new bike. Whether it's electric or not, I'm not going to let you know, but I've just bought a new bike, so there's going to be more new content coming to the channel soon. So with all that said and done, I'm Matt Francis, signing out. Peace.